Thanks for joining us. I am having a problem with the layout because I am not very good at technology today. Um, Thank you for joining us again. Last month we went over um, a fun project. It's nameless and faceless, and we're not going to bring anything up about who they are. If you do it in the comments, I will warn you. You might become part of the litigation for defamation. So I would probably not do that. But definitely we can learn a lot from other people's mishaps. And if you're coming back, it's probably because you've been burned by contracts, not because you actually want to learn anything about them the right way. Welcome in. We have with us JD Whitaker with Control Core, Bryant, the CEO at Control Core. JD, what's your role?
Product manager, just
Project
product guy,
product
man. I just
development.
draw
That's right.
pictures. Yeah.
Caleb is the chief revenue officer over there at Control Core, and Peter and Amy are with National Lean Service, the two owners. And they've probably seen more of this than anybody else on this call.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. So to start everything off, though, we're gonna have Peter give us a quick 30-second, 1 minute kind of rerun of what we're talking about, the scope, everything, and then we're gonna jump into a little bit of issues we have with not reading contracts up front, and then we're going to start to go through contracts over the next several months.
Okay, so if you weren't with us last session, what we are doing is breaking down a case study on a very large public project, university stadium project that went awry very quickly. What happened was there was some soil testing that they thought they were good with, and it ended up that when they actually got into the project, it caused massive delays by several years, liquidated damages. It was a very sideways project for a long time. It was a very complex project, which is why we're actually trying to break it down. It brings in all sorts of elements. So with that said, maybe Amy can give us an idea of what we should be looking for here.
In this particular case, I think what we're looking for today, especially in today's session, is we really want to see some of the opportunities that were there that could have been avoided, both, contractually to begin with. This one did have a lot of liquidated damages associated with it for obvious reasons, because it was a university. You've got media rights, you have a lot more attached to it, more than just, somebody who wants something done at a certain time. There were a lot of other relationships involved. And I'm looking forward to getting into some of the details and what was going on with that particular faceless project, and maybe some other ones that we've all seen in our collective careers.
Yeah, and thank you for the introduction. And we have Susan with us. Thanks for being here, Susan. It looks like out of Arizona with probably Peter and Amy. And wherever you're at, feel free, drop a comment. We'd love to see kind of like the reach that people are seeing this. I know that I've talked to people from Australia, New Zealand, London, Africa, Canada. I mean, Canada's a little more normal because we're in the US, but it's cool to hear where everybody's at. So please feel free to do that. But we're going to start off with just a little bit of lessons learned. We've all been burned by a contract in some regard, whether it's terms and conditions of Apple, or it's a contract with a general contractor or a client. So JD, could you, what's the worst experience you've had, the worst thing that's burned you? And let's start there.
The worst thing, just not having a contract at all, So
Yeah.
We got to even get to that point before we start talking about contract terms. But once we've passed that threshold, probably one of the more frustrating ones was going into an argument thinking that we had potential liquidated damages on the line, and it was all hinged upon substantial completion. But I never thought to actually confirm that we all use the same definition for substantial completion. And so that was a kind of a hard lesson learned, because I came to find out that, at least where we're operating, state of Utah, that you could kind of refine, we'll call it refine that definition. And I did not have as strong of a stance going into a discussion. And so had to make some concessions. So I'll just, before I go too far into it, is just, I didn't.
Yeah.
I
Let's
didn't
start
know
with
what the
that.
critical
Let
terms.
me. I know you work with Bryant quite a bit. Even he's even helped at the GC firm a little bit. So Bryant, what's your definition of substantial completion?
Man, that's a better question for JD because he's the one who had to eat crow when he tried to.
I know. That's the thing is, I'm curious. Like, it seems like such a industry standard term that we all use and throw out there. But for you, what does it mean? And then we'll see like what's Peter and Amy and Caleb think. I bet you it's all 4 different answers.
I'll tell you what it's not. It's not a complete punch list.
Okay.
And I mean,
At least he gave me a little cheat.
I mean, that's a separate topic, getting punched out on like the project done in a timely manner. But when it comes to arguing over, hey, did I contractually complete like my scope? I think that just I've always used the definition of just can you occupy or use the building, the whatever the project was, for its intended use. You could expand that a little bit more, but
yeah,
there's a fine line of not taking it so far that you're like, dude, your punch list isn't done. Well, that's not substantial completion. It's a separate issue.
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts on it.
That was kind of my where do you get, how does substantial completion tie in with that certificate of occupancy, and like putting those two things together. If you can occupy the building and you can, is my scope relatively complete? That's kind of where I sit. But again, that leaves room for scrutiny. So I don't know if I have a great
CO. Can I get in the building? Right, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Peter, Amy, have you ever run into that where like words, just
Amy gets
words
this
and
all the time.
definition?
Yeah.
I get this all the time. Obviously, because when we draft mechanics liens, one of the critical elements that you look for, the first thing you look for is when was the project complete? Well, how do you define completion? And yes, everybody defines completion completely differently. However, statutorily, in most cases, we're looking at that C of O, that certificate of occupancy, or we're looking for a final inspection. Inspections can help too. When you're looking at a final inspection's like, look, as long as a government entity has said, or an agency has said, look, you're good. You can occupy the building. You've got your fire installed. Usually fire is one of the last ones that goes in. Once we see their inspection has been completed, that's usually the last one to go. That's really what we look for. Now, then again, we work nationally, and every state defines completion differently as far as how a lien goes, but contractually is where it really needs to be defined, so that when you are looking at escalation timeframes, you're looking at payment timeframes, retention. The other problem with that is when does retention start? Is retention starting at substantial completion as defined by contract, or does it start when you hand over your warranty certificate and say, okay, today's day, warranty day 1. So how do you define completion, how the contract defines completion, and how the state defines completion are 3 completely different terms.
Yeah, and picking up on what JD mentioned, we are constantly shocked about how many contractors work without a contract. You are a contractor working without a contract, and it really does. I mean, here we are trying to all come up with a definition for a single term that needs to be really important in this thing, and we're working without any sort of definitions or agreements in any way, and that's what becomes difficult. So obviously the first step would be make sure you have a contract and then read it.
That even has completion defined in it. And if you have questions on that completion, it's a critical element to ensure that you define with your customer or the owner or the developer before you get on the project.
Sorry, Amy. Go ahead.
Oh, no. The one thing that I said it yesterday on our call, and I'll say it again today, and I've been telling clients a lot lately, is before you get into a project, know how you're going to get out of a project.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, how you're going to finish it.
Yeah, when is it done? Sorry, Brian, go for it.
No, you're okay. I'm just thinking, and this is more of a question for the group, just because I've been seeing it lately with a lot of the clients that we work with is they don't get contracts for the smaller jobs, right? These little like one-off jobs where it's just like, hey, I'm scratch your back. I really want the business, and I want to maintain the friendship. Like, you know, there's a part of me that's just like, yeah, like I get it. I know what we're up against there, trying to just really keep really good relationships and keep business going. But you know, what have we seen in that space where those small jobs just all of a sudden, you know, kick us while we're and create problems for us?
I think that's so much more common than the no contract, or forbid unexecuted contracts, which our companies see a lot. You have a contract, it defines everything, and when you're doing an escalation, there's no signature. What am I? Did no one sign it? Somebody must have read it. I mean, you have it. It's obviously got their letterhead, but nobody signed it. So, really understanding how you are accepting your risk, how you are nurturing your risk, and then how you are just living with it because you didn't take the steps at the beginning to have the foresight to redline.
So coming back to this project real quick. So if you were a sub on this project, Josh, what kinds of things would you be looking for in a contract that hopefully you're actually looking at that are going to help you when this project goes sideways? Because it did go horribly, horribly sideways. Millions of dollars overrun, 2 years of delays. It was huge.
Mm-hmm.
What would you look for to make sure that you're safe?
Yeah, you know, at the end of the day, I think I've said this before on here, but I believe 3 people should always read a contract at minimum. And you have somebody that understands scope, estimating, project management, superintendent, somebody that understands business, like cash flow, what does it do to our business if we're interacting, and then legal is the third. Somebody who understands if this goes to court, how does it affect us? What do we have to do to maintain it? I think, you know, the other hard part that we even talked about the other day, guys, is it doesn't matter how good you are at managing the contract and doing the right things. If a bad client's going to be a bad client and not pay you, you know, whoever holds the money holds the power, and you're going to have to negotiate down. So while you have the leverage, you have to use it. You have to force a written change order in, like, fully executed. And that's something I know we're going to get into one of the next few meetings. It's like, what is that? But it's so vague. There's so many, to you and I, to all of us, like all these, the major problem is just definitions of words. They seem like they make sense at a first grade level, but according to lawyers, they're not. Caleb, I know that you watch a lot of, or you send out a lot of contracts. So have you ever read yours? Do you understand all the things that you're asking people to sign up for?
I have read them, but I mean, I would say that it's very easy to lose visibility over every detail, right? Like, I'm not reading those every day of every month, and so when I would say that when you get into danger around contracts, you know, from my simple perspective on this is the edge cases that create exceptions to the project or the engagement. So that's what I would take away from my experience with reviewing contract details and ensuring that the scope of whatever the project or the engagement is aligned, where, you know, something might have changed and what was anticipated in the contract isn't covered. And, you know, I could know the contract inside and out, but we didn't get it in there.
Yeah. No, at the end of the day, it's hard because there's so many. As a contractor, you have a different one with every single company. As a sub, it's really hard because you have different GCs. But if you're a GC with a client, at least you have a template that you can remember most of the same things. But I wanted to go back to chat. We have Gary in Arizona. Hi, Gary. And Ryan is joining us from Utah. I wanted to make it a point to ask, what questions do you guys have, or what are issues that you have? If you can leave a comment, I'm watching that. That's why I'm typing and doing other things in the background. But we definitely want this to be interactive. It's not just 5 people, 6 people talking about contracts. That's boring. Hopefully we get to some anxiety and like a thriller kind of a feel. But Yeah. Peter, what do you think the biggest problem that you've seen is in just your Rolodex of scenarios that you've had happen to you?
Well, we've seen like literally the horror stories we get at the end of the project. We're not involved in the front end of the project most of the time, obviously, because what we do is the punitive stuff at the end where we're having to chase money and whatever. So we have to dissect it going backwards and say, well, you didn't do this, you didn't do this, you did this, great, but it doesn't matter because you didn't do the other thing. My God,
Yeah.
the various things that we've seen.
What are the top three that you think that
Oh.
if somebody could take something away from this and they learn three things to look at in their contract, what would you recommend those would be?
I'll take this one.
Yeah, you take this
The
one.
three things
Okay.
that I would look at from where I sit. Now, again, remember where I sit. I look at helping collect money. That's us. You haven't been paid. Now I look to collect. So now looking at the risk backwards, here are the things that I look for. Pay when paid, pay if paid clauses. That's number one. Number two, you should always be asking. I don't care if it's a public project, private project, maybe not a residential project, but public or private project, you should always ask if it is bonded. If it is a bonded project, especially if you're coming in as a second tier subcontractor or a supplier. If you're providing supply material, you want to know this is a really big project that I'm supplying a lot of material to. I want to make sure that there's no bond on it, because guess what? If there's a bond on it, you're going to need that to collect, because that bond is there in lieu of the real property. So that at some point way up the stream, someone had said, hey, we're going to get into contract, but you can't use this property as collateral or leverage should you not get paid. So I, as the owner developer, am going to mitigate the risk. I'm going to shift it, right? Risk shifting is all about contracting too in construction. So they shift it. I would ask if there's a bond. Pay when paid, pay if paid. A bond. And the third thing I would look at, retention timeframes. Are you agreeing to retention timeframes that supersede or exceed your lien timeframe in the state that you're working in? Because when we get to doing liens and your retention isn't, you're liening a project at day 110, but you've agreed to 180 days of retention, you're going to have lawyers calling you and emailing you saying, hey, you've got a faulty lien. And then your lawyer's going to have to respond saying, no, wait, we have to retain our lien right. And then your lawyer's getting, your attorneys are talking, which is what you want anyway. I mean, that means somebody knows that you're not getting paid, and it kind of, but it can cause some heartburn, it can cause some issue, and now it's costing you more than just whatever you've paid a lien company or a law firm or internal staff to complete these documents, the risk you run in recording these documents, and then what happens when you've actually agreed to timeframes that are way beyond. I've seen open-ended retention before. Which
is crazy.
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
add one more. I'll add one more to that, and that is
Bonus.
know where you're working. So we've so a public project has different risk on it than a private project, and a tribal project has a completely different risk than any other project, right? So we actually had a client that it started off with a very large building in a very public place, and everyone thought, wow, it's just a commercial project. And it turns out that the ground that is owned underneath it was leased to the city by a tribe. So that brings over all sorts of complexities, but more importantly, nobody looked at it before they jumped into the project. So they don't even know, they're thinking this is just regular commercial risk, and it's not. It's completely different. There's no recovery for them. Well, I shouldn't say no recovery, but it's much more difficult.
Which is why knowing how to get out of a project before you get into it is so important.
Right.
That's why looking at the contract and finding out if I don't get paid, what is my remedy? What are my recourses?
So JD, when you guys are starting a project, are you doing your research on who owns the property before you jump into it, before you bid it even?
Yeah, absolutely. Because
Okay.
I haven't done that before, and it made me sad because things went sideways, and yeah, I'll just echo understanding the concept of a lien is an encumbrance on title for a piece of real estate, right? So my only security is that or your only real path to recourse is by attaching your claim to the dirt or the building. And if you just fundamentally approach like every project that way, you'll naturally fall into a course of thought that thinks, well, I should know who owns the dirt. And like who's the person, if I don't get paid, is going to care the most? And it's the people that own the dirt. If you want to look at like other, like the bank, so understanding if possible, like some of those other elements. So that's kind of my take on it. And I don't know, Josh, I don't know where we want to go. Like I got a lot of other thoughts on just like contracts and stuff, but I don't know if we want to keep hitting on this topic too.
Yeah, no, from a sub perspective, I talk to a lot of people that always talk about the relationship. We want to maintain the relationship and win more work with this client. We're just gonna get in with this one and we'll make it up on the next one. But you're just a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's like I don't think subcontractors realize that some people aren't even some GCs you're bidding to aren't even checking to make sure that the project's legit. They're just signing people up. They're just like everybody else in the world. They're excited to make a sale. Let's go build. Let's do the thing we're really good at. Let's make a name for ourselves. And then pretty soon you're $500,000 into a project or even done and haven't been paid.
Yeah, the number of people that start projects on LOIs and NOIs are insane.
Yes.
Insane. So we have one of the clients we have, I can probably come up with a story for almost every scenario. We had a client who, it's a rebar supplier, and the subcontractor to a GC on a large government project had said, hey, I got an LOI, I need to go buy a bunch of material, like $1.2 million worth of rebar. And they did. And our client dropped that material at that property.
Happily,
very happily. And the subcontractor ended up not getting the job. And my customer had to go pick up all of that rebar that had now been sitting on this project, take it back and restock it, and they wanted to lien the project. You can't because there was no contract between your customer and the higher ups. You can't because your product did not improve a property. You didn't do anything. You dropped it because someone came to you with an LOI. And that cost to the customer to go pick it back up was not cheap, because $1.2 million in rebar to go pick that up and put it back onto a flatbed, and you're trespassing at the same time. Yeah, not a good look.
Yeah.
No. Oh gosh, no. I want to catch up with the comments quick. We have Dino from Arizona, does painting as well. We have Scott from Oklahoma. Hey, Scott and Dino. Susan said, as a sub, we send a notice of delay, typically due to other trades starting or stating additional time and possibly labor will be required. Is this helpful with liquidated damages clauses? And I'm going to defer that one to you, JD, and I can repeat it if you need to.
Well, this is kind of one of those elements of a contract that, like, as you're going down the list and you're asking yourself what could go wrong. Well, what could go wrong is I get charged for liquidated damages for being late, but really nailing down, like, how are we going to calculate late? Late requires a start date and a substantial completion date. And so taking the time, I talked about defining substantial completion, but like we should probably define what triggers like an actual start date. Like we have some of our contract language that will hit on, well, technically a start date is when the project is permitted and funding is in place. And so there's been a few times that, like, without those two, like, I mean, we have customers that we have strong relationships with, and there are times we will go out on a limb and we want to take care of them. And so we'll start doing some work. We'll have an understanding, but like you can at least have you can still have a contract in place, And if you're really crazy like us, sometimes we will start and maybe we still got to wrap up some things on the funding. That's not a great like scenario. It creates what I call the SER dance when you're trying to figure out kind of priority and stuff. But the reality is sometimes you do what you got to do to keep your clients happy, but at least you have an understanding in place. And I know, hey, like you took 2 months to get funding like nailed down. Like that's technically my start date. So
Yeah.
Because in again in my world completely different.
Mm-hmm.
So start date in most cases are going to be when the first lienable act occurred, which is going to be depending if you're doing design work. Design is included in some states, or when the first day that your team is actually boots on the ground. That can be considered your first date if you're not doing design. So it's funny how the definition between start and completion are so different between, like, JD, when you're talking about like permitting, I'm like, oh my god, like I don't think I would ever see a notice that soon for someone to secure a lien right that soon. Oh, we've got the permit, we're going to go ahead and do it. Funding's in place, we're going to do it. It's when they're starting to do lienable work, and every state defines that a little bit differently. Sometimes it's bill anytime you're going to bill for something, and then sometimes, I mean, I had a client. This is not a joke. We had a client in the last couple of weeks, and it's not that it's a joke. It shouldn't be a joke. It's the desperation of getting paid, right? Who wanted to do a lien on just a permit that they had pulled. They pulled a permit on a project. It's the only thing this woman's not paying for, and they wanted to lien for just the permit. I'm like, you didn't improve the property. It has to be something that improves the property.
Is there, guys? There a? Sorry, I'm gonna ask a question here, and it might be dumb, but like, you know, from what JD's definition versus Amy's definition, JD's in my mind was like, yeah, that's the project start date, and Amy, your definition felt like it was more of the project, like a subcontractor's beginning date to start work. Like when we're talking about the contract and looking at that, is there any reason for a subcontractor, like let's say a framer, like the project start date is less important to them than the actual work when they actually start work? I guess, is there, in your guys' experience, has the project start date been a factor for some of those later subs that come in?
No, because the good thing about statute is that it's going to apply to the individual. So it'll apply to the subcontractor individually. When was their first lienable act? So here's a good example. Let's say you use your framer. Your framer's first lienable act would be the first day they drop material on the project. That is their first day on the project. That's their start date. Your electrician, your subcontractor, if your electrician, your electrical subcontractor is also providing the drafting, the workout for the building, their drafting would be their first lienable act before they stepped foot on the project. If your electrician didn't provide drafting and just showed up to do the work, then when they showed up on the project would be their first day. It's basically when you start invoicing your customer. I'm going to invoice my customer. Now, a permit is a little bit different. And a permit is different because it's just paper. It doesn't just be, anybody can get a permit to do, I would say, just about anything, but I guess you can't just do about anything.
No.
But I would challenge everybody on this call to try it.
Something that's coming up to me is for next topics, because we're almost out of time today for this. But one, I want to next week, I think, or next month, sorry, I think it makes sense. Let's talk about what is a contract, because if you haven't read one, you always get slapped in the face with like, well, what's in the contract? What's in the contract? The GC's favorite phrase. And we can figure out what actually applies to every contract because it's different. And then the next month after that, I think you bring up a perfect point, Amy. It's like everything is different between the contract language with how we're viewing things. Like the contract schedule is super important. When are we actually supposed to start? When do we send, like Susan said, that notice of delay? Well, it's not based on, word of mouth and whatever. It's based on the contract schedule. If I'm a day late, here's your notice of delay. I don't know if that's going to be a cost impact yet. You haven't even figured out when you're going to do the work. But here's me maintaining my rights to a change order that you guys need to be aware of, right? I think that's perfect to align, like, real life with real contract documents with legal law dates that every state has. What do you guys think?
Well, so Amy uses a phrase, rainbows and butterflies. When you first start the project, everything's rainbows and butterflies. Everything is good. You go in with wonderful eyes. Oh, I know that guy. And then things
Yep.
go off the rails and it's completely different. So whatever we're doing in front of the project is rainbows and butterflies. We have to figure a way to remove those glasses and work through problems before they start, right? So JD, you were mentioning the other day that you kind of walk through scenarios. So
Maybe we can talk
Maybe we
about
could-
that next time too.
yeah, we could talk about that next time too. Walk through a few scenarios and see how that goes.
Yeah. No, I love it, guys. And I don't want to keep everybody long. I mean, I've learned that when we train on contracts with our clients, it's like after 30 minutes, 45 minutes, it's like, stop.
Oh, yeah.
I cannot absorb any more of this. It's so dense. So I'm gonna just touch on Josh from Iowa Masonry contractor. Thanks for joining us, sir. And if you guys have any questions, feel free, leave them in the comments. Also, we're gonna do the mean tweets at the end. So if you have anything, please roast us. Please, I would love to copy and paste it.
Sensitive, please.
Especially me, because I tend to make a lot of GCs mad, except for JD. Him and I are buddies.
No, JD's sensitive. He'll cry.
Okay, so it's time for our favorite segment. Am I the butthole? Okay. I'm a $23 million electrical contractor. We got awarded a TI build out in downtown Dallas last year, about a $3.2 million subcontract with a start date of 2 weeks. Full floor build out, new panels, lighting, tenant distribution, and tying into existing gear with a live building with other tenants working in the building. A good sized job for us with a fairly tight schedule, but really want the exposure with this GC to work on more of their new builds instead of just their TIs. They sent over the subcontract. It has the typical stuff, pay when paid, 10% retention. I know some states are 5, but Texas is not, for those who are lucky enough to not have that. And a clause that we waive the right to stop work for non-payment. I want to stop right there for a second. Amy, what do you feel about that?
What?
That's a terrible idea. Stopping work for non-payment, you might as well just prepare for delay, which means that I would look immediately to what the delays are going to be and what can cause a delay, and then what would be a chargeback for my scope.
Yep.
Having that in contract, and I do see that in contracts, is it's risk. It's going to be a high risk, very high risk. It'd make me cry.
Yeah. Is it something that's even
How do you
in your
enforce
experience? I'm not going to give you legal
Enforceable?
advice, but in your experience, is it enforceable?
Well, I can't give legal advice because I'm an attorney. That's what we have lawyers for.
I know, but in your experience, what have you seen?
In my experience, I've seen it. In my experience, I have seen that in contracts where if they don't get, that's pay when paid. I mean, pay when paid is basically that clause. Even if I don't get paid, I have to continue the work. When you don't look at pay when paid clauses and saying that I waive cessation, or I'm going to waive pulling my team off and demobilizing my team if I don't get paid, that is huge. But the thing is you're basically agreeing that when you do pay when paid anyway.
Yep.
So
yeah, no, I agree. I hate seeing it. I hate when people just sign up for unnecessary risk.
Well, I have clients that have been on projects for 9 months, 10 months, and not received a single payment.
That's true. And
Ouch.
it usually starts
Yeah,
off with.
at some point it's like, do something. Go ahead. Sorry, Peter.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say it. It always starts off with, well, yeah, but I know the guy,
But I
so
know
it's
the guy.
okay.
This has never happened
It's
before.
never
Oh yeah, he's good for it.
You know.
So
Yep.
strange.
All right, I think it's going to get a little worse here in a second. And a clause, I sent over the markups the next day, and the PM calls immediately. He laughs at me and says, We're not making any changes. That's our company standard. Every subcontractor signs it. Have you ever heard that? I tell him I understand pay when paid, but I'm not going to agree to a $3.2 million build out while also giving up my right to stop work if we don't get paid within some defined time frame, especially if I have $300,000 to $500,000 of gear, wire, and material.
I think a lot of it that has to factor into whether you're accepting those clauses, whether you can take it.
Yeah.
Can your company take it? Can your company take walking away from that money? That should be your decision. If my company can take walking away from 3.2 million because I'm going to have to continue to do the work, I'm going to do the work. I might not get paid, and if I don't get paid, I still have to pay my team out. Can your company afford to carry that project with no payment?
Yeah. Or if they just, because what they always do is they'll pay you up to a certain point, like 70%, and they're still holding 10% retention, and then the last 2 or 3 payments, you lose all your leverage. You know, you get CO, you do all the things. Oh yeah, the fire marshal wanted us to add this one thing, so we did it so they could pass. But now you have no leverage because they can occupy the building. All you can do is maintain your lien rights, and then how long does that take, Amy? How long do you actually see people take after they lien a project to receive money for that?
Depends. It depends on whether they engage their legal team pretty quickly. Sometime, and I'd say it's about 50-50 because 50% of the time, a lot of the people that are receiving the liens they just want it gone because they're trying to get funding, they're trying to get another draw for the project. Or they're trying to sell it if they're trying to sell the property, or they're trying to having that kind of encumbrance. If you don't engage your law firm, let's say you did a lien, you don't hear from anybody for about 6 weeks, right? I'd be calling my attorney and being, okay, we need demand letters. We need to let them know we're looking at foreclosure. We need to see what it's going to take for foreclosure. Another thing people should be doing, have a conversation with your legal team to understand what it costs to begin a foreclosure proceeding.
Correct.
It is not inexpensive. It is a lot of money. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of effort. And if you don't understand what it's going to cost for you to get out of the project, sometimes that's your only way. So you have to be ready. That's got to be part of your budget too, kind of in the back of your mind as an owner, is I need to speak to my attorney. I'm calling my construction attorney right after this. I'm going to say, hey, listen, if I decide to go to foreclosure on a mech lien in a year, 2 year, what can I expect for a retainer for a lawsuit to secure lawsuit? And it's not cheap. So, and a lot of my clients will say, I'm leaning this project. This $5,000 project, I'm leaning it. I'm like, okay, great. Well, what do I do with it afterwards? I said, you might want to talk to your attorney to see what you're going to do with this if this lien doesn't work. But just a lot of times lenders will shut down money.
Yeah, and I think one of the most intimidating things for these subcontractors or GCs even, because we just want to do our work. You know, we're really good at installing something or planning work and building, and we're just good at it. That's why we started a business. But we have no idea. It's so intimidating to figure out, how do I lien a project? What if I'm wrong and then I owe to remove the lien and I have all these damages back at me? It's just not worth it. So I'm just gonna, bite my tongue, just try to stick it out until it gets, unbearable.
Right. It's a hard decision.
To wrap up this story, the 2 non-negotiables for this guy, at a minimum, reduce retention to 5% at 50% completion. That's a best practice. I like it. I don't know if they're going to get it, but I like it. And remove the no stop work clause. He tells me if I push legal terms, they'll just give it to the next guy. Told me I'm risking the relationship that I've been building. And my ops manager's pressuring me to just sign it. They're good to work with. He's done it before with another company. And we have the crews that need to keep busy. But I've been burned before by playing that game. So I held my ground. A week goes by, then another, then nothing. Finally, the GC calls and asks why we aren't on site. We're a horrible trade partner. This is the standard. Like this, that, and the third. Things just feel off. And I guess for you guys, how would you feel if that was the situation? Is this guy a butthole for refusing work that he had bid on and planned, and the GC counted on them, used their number? If this is kind of the point of which everything becomes a negotiation, right before they need to be out there?
I'm going to defer that to JD. And
I was
Brian.
just going to say JD and Brian might be better for this one.
So you're cutting out a little bit, Josh. So I'm going to try to fill in the kind of the gaps. Essentially, and correct me if I'm wrong, the sub, it sounds like they held their ground and they didn't get started until
Yep.
some of their terms were met, right?
Well, yeah. So the way it sounded to me was they bid the job. They had been given like a verbal LOI or NOI, maybe even in writing. I don't really know. It doesn't give the context. But when they got to the point of like, hey, we're supposed to start construction, they were given 2 weeks to sign a subcontract. They turned it around right away, and the GC sat on it and then got mad when they weren't there on site 2 weeks later because they didn't have a contract in writing, agreed upon.
Oh, the subs, they turned down the contract in this case? They walked
They
away?
didn't turn it down. It sounds like they wanted to do the work. It's just the GC was taking a long time to review the changes and didn't want to face the hard conversations, if you will.
Yeah. So
Go
this
there,
is kind of how my take on the scenario. There's a few things, right? Like, did I send one email? Like, I'm the sub. Did I just send one and I'm like, nope, like, I'm not gonna, well, that's my stance, so that's it. And then we leave it alone. Technically, like, I guess you could make yourself feel better and say, well, the ball was in their court. I think at the end of the day, you have to stop and just think about, like, if I'm more focused on being right than just doing the job, you're just going to be getting in a lot of fights, and it's going to wear you out. You're going to burn out. So yeah, like, some of the things that are in my mind is, like, there's so many variables in this. Like, what is the subcontractor's relationship with the owner of the company? Like that's just a PM. Like, and I know that they make decisions, but at the end of the day, like, if the PM isn't being responsive and your relationship is with the owner of the actual GC, you can show that you've made an honest effort to communicate. I also think that, like, some people, like, be willing to show some of your cards and just be like, bro, like, I wish I could mobilize in 2 weeks, but you realize that, like, this equipment package has a 3-month lead time. Like, I can't, like, mobilize, and and then you go to the drawing board and you say, well, what can we do? And that's the other part too, is you want to start and argue over some terms, and you'll find that, like, once you just cool down a little bit and you think, wow, I guess I wouldn't want to just go and work for free either. I also don't want to pay someone money in advance and have them take off on it. Like, generally speaking, there's some good reason on both sides. So find a solution, whether it's like an escrow account, whether it's, well, like, you want to pay my materials, like, directly, like what do you need to do to feel better, Mr. GC, and what do I need to feel like I'm not taking an unnecessary risk, and let's really focus on what we really want instead of just getting hyper focused on, like, the terms of the contract and winning an argument. Easier said than done.
Yeah,
I get that, but that's my take on it.
I was actually going to ask you, JD, sorry, Don. I was going to ask you, JD, what your thought would have been as in the GC position if a sub came to you and said, hey, listen, I would like to have 5% of my retention released, 6 months into the job. If it's a multi-year or very long job, how would you address that? Would that be, if that was a critical element for them on the contract?
I would say, I mean, I think instead of a time frame, then they might be very similar. I would rather just put it into, like, a milestone, and then at that point, like, I think, like, you just have to ask, why does retention exist? It's so that like, if I need you to pay attention and help me finish the job and take care of a client, that, like, you are sufficiently motivated to do that. And so I mean, I would just look at it from a what is the amount that keeps you sufficiently motivated? And we both need to agree to that amount. And so
Yeah.
it's going to be, stuff like remaining contract value, some other elements like that. I have personally done something similar with like contracts where a bank will just use templated language, and because a lot of times as a GC, I have an existing agreement with my client, and it might be 2 pages long, but a bank comes in and they're like, we are not lending on this project unless you are using AIA. I can't remember them now, but and there's a lot of terms in there that you need to understand. And let's just take retention for one of them. We had a project. It was like a $35 million project. That's a lot more retention than it would be excessive for the relationship that I have with my client. My relationship is not with the bank. And so I wrote into the contract, okay, and in Utah, it's like retention is 5%, but I said, I'm gonna cap it at $1 million. Like, so regardless of like retention percentage or whatever, as soon as I hit $1 million, we're done. And it went through, and I'm like, okay, like that's stuck.
It's funny,
So,
JD, I know that job because I was billing at the time when it hit that cap, and I had to remind the bank because the bank came back and said, hey, retention's wrong. And so I actually had to go and remind the bank, you missed the part in the contract, sorry. So
how'd that go?
It was fine, because again, a lot of times the banks are just trying to check boxes. The guys that are in compliance with the bank is just checking boxes. So they were like, right, I guess we're good.
That's a huge point. The relationships are much more complex at the ownership and GC level. There's a lot of things that can go wrong there. That a lot of subs, I'm working with the GC, and that's all I've got. But there's a lot of moving parts up there that can go wrong, and very quickly.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think
I have a sub that
for
doesn't
me,
pay their material supplier. It's my problem.
Right.
Like I just inherited their problem.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
And so we get a little bit sensitive about some of those things. So I'll pay you. Did you pay your people too?
Which is why lien waivers, I saw your guys' post the other day,
Yeah.
lien waivers are so important because it keeps everybody honest. It keeps everybody, it lets everybody know that so-and-so's gotten paid and that person has agreed to it. I've seen the blackmail, the same time, I'll give you the check, you give me the waiver. I've seen it. I've got clients that'll go down and do it. I've done it for clients.
Yeah, we sat in an office
and picked up a check for a client and handed over a lien waiver. Things to keep in mind with those lien waivers is that's how banks know. We can get into lien waivers all day, but that's how banks know, and that's why banks ask for it. And sometimes you'll have a lot of general contractors or subcontractors say, I don't understand why on month 1 I'm giving my conditional with my pay app. Month 2 I'm giving an unconditional for the month prior plus a conditional for the current month plus my pay app. It's because the bank wants to see that you were paid, and they know you're not going to sign an unconditional lien waiver if you've not been paid, or the relationship is more important to you and you're going to sign whatever you want to sign to keep the relationship between you and your customer intact. And but again, those are the decisions you have to make at a high level. That's all risk. I hate risk. I'm so risk averse. Since doing this, I'm like horribly risk averse.
It makes you want to read your Apple terms and conditions and turn off your iPhone.
Forever. Never get on any kind of technology again.
Exactly. To loop everybody in from the comments, Susan, I see a trend, and I'll say that. Susan, subcontractor, not a butthole. Sergio, subcontractor. What's the contract say? If it says it, stick it to them, right? We're right. Subcontractor. So personally, I think all of us subcontractors, speaking from the experience of that side and all the people I work with, we've been burned enough to just, if it's not in writing, it's not good enough. It doesn't matter if we have a relationship with the PM. It doesn't matter if we have a relationship with the owner, because if somebody gets hit by a bus, they move on from the project, the owner sells, what's going to happen? They're going to go to the contract, and they're going to go exactly off of that in writing. It doesn't matter what your relationship ever had been in the past.
And I think
and
something to remember.
I understand your point, JD.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Amy.
I was going to say the one thing that to also remember, especially when you're a subcontractor, a second tier, or a supplier, whomever, is you might trust the hand that you're shaking, but you don't know who else's hand they've shaken before yours.
Or whose pocket it's in.
Yeah.
Exactly. I will say the last part that, in my opinion, from the GC perspective, because we do have third tier subs and we have to try to manage up and down, right? We have to be able to manage expectations and communication up and down. We can't just say, my relationship as a GC with the bank is more important than anybody else on this project. I don't care if these subs get paid because I have to make the bank happy or I have to make the owner happy because that's my primary relationship. It's a little bit of everything. GCs are typically seen as a commodity, whereas a good trade partner is not. And if you want to be a good GC, you're going to have good trade partners. So if you want to not be a commodity, you're not going to stiff them, in my opinion. Of course, I'm biased here.
What?
Bias.
But you guys have anything else you want to add? Otherwise, I will give us our mean tweets.
Let's get some mean tweets going.
Make JD cry.
All right, we're gonna go with JD. You're first.
I wanna feel something here. Oh, that's a good one.
Go ahead, JD.
Oh man.
Go ahead and read it.
Did you
I'll
read
pull it up again because you didn't even read it in 10 seconds.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought, okay. JD said quick overview, and my grandkids just RSVP'd for part 2. That means it was that good. They wanted part 2. That's spot on.
They got you.
That's awesome.
They got you good.
That's
All right,
good.
let's go with Peter. Go ahead.
Oh, Peter is the type to say simple and then draw a diagram that needs its own webinar. Oh, man.
It's true, too.
Yes.
You could ask any of our kids.
That's
They'll tell
true.
you.
All right. We'll go with Bryant.
Bryant's LinkedIn posts are so exciting, they make the IRS website feel like Coachella. That's cool.
I might be young. I don't know what Coachella is. You might want to explain that for other people.
Yeah, we'll explain it to you when you're too young.
Yeah, you're too young.
I'm sorry. I'm not that young. Go ahead, Amy.
Amy called it a light agenda, and it has chapters. Yes. It'll always have chapters.
When you read contracts all day, that's what happens.
Yeah,
And again, I don't have one. It's amazing. I don't understand this, guys.
Gosh.
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, wait.
His content is so random, even ChatGPT asked him to fact check.
That's good.
That's nice.
Awesome.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for that one.
I think, Josh, it would be cool, too, that if anybody that's watching this has something that they want us to talk on or have somebody to come in and speak with us as a specialist, that we can do that and we can coordinate that. But we definitely want to make sure that we're hitting things that people that are watching and, not lose sight of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, for sure. We are only doing this not because we like to sit here and talk about ourselves, but because we want to actually make a difference. So I'm going to put up my email there for you. If you guys have anything you want to go over for comments, if you have any mean tweets for next time, if you have an Am I the Butthole story, no matter what it is, and we're going to go a lot further than just reading these contracts and looking at it beforehand. We're going to start to look at it long term and bring in guests. If you are somebody that wants to join in on this and you have a specialized part of this, like reading contracts, we want you to reach out. We're happy to do all of that. Just send me an email. Put it right here. And it's Josh at constructioncfo.net if you're blind and you're listening to this. Josh is with a J. It's
not with a Y. Everyone.
but the K is silent. Anyway, I'm going to be checking. This is going to be on YouTube. This is going to be on LinkedIn, whatever, perpetually. I'm going to check the comments. So between now and next month, anything that comes up, I'm going to be seeing it. Don't feel like, oh, it's 3 weeks old. Josh isn't going to look at this and notice me. Just feel free to tag me, or if it's on YouTube, I will find it. But with that, what do you guys think? How'd we
A
do?
lot of,
Awesome.
I think we-
Was it good? Okay, I will end it
Forward to
now.
next month.
Goodbye, everybody.
Okay.
Bye.